It's been a rough year. Things really can only get better. So yes, it's been a year of chaos. Welcome, Olympia. Lovely to see you in real life. Welcome to Chronicles of the Galaxy.
Oh, thank you, Matt. I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be back in real life because Matt and I were in the same city. We're in Dubai.
No other place to be.
That is home.
Okay. Well, welcome to you in town.
Yes, thank you so much. It's so good to be back and so great to be doing this IRL with you. In preparation for our episode today, I went back and listened to our first episode. If you guys haven't listened to it, go check it out. It's us, fresh off the beat as new podcasters. And we sound pretty good, if I may say so. But if you haven't, go check that out. And it's in that episode. We kind of planned this. We're like, oh, it'd be great. We, did the pod here together in Dubai.
And here we are. We squeezed it in before the end of the year. Well done. Well done, Olympia. I didn't do much. I just stayed put. You came here. Yes.
I think the fact that we kept on going has given me incentive to come and do this. So this is our 21st or 22nd episode.
That is big.
It is. It's huge. So we might have scrapped like a couple in the middle. We lost one.
For the best, I think, if I remember well. Well, yeah. Well, we did lose a couple as well, and they were sad to go. Every now and then, in planning for pods, I think, oh, we talked about that, and then like, no, that was the episode we lost.
Yes, hopefully in the future we will not lose any pods, so we can share them with you. But I am super excited that we do get to squeeze this in. We are doing a kind of wrapped version, a retrospective, if you will.
Yeah, less of our content, more of the year at large. Yeah, but
yes.
Absolutely. I'm really looking back and reflecting on a year, and what a year it's been. It's been chaotic. So yeah,
one word. If you wanted to try and put it in one word, would chaotic be your word for 2025?
Well, I don't want to be too crass. It's obviously been, there's been a lot of suffering, a lot of hurt in the world. So yeah, it's certainly been eventful, but it's been a rough year. And you like to think as humanity evolves and technology evolves and all of these wonderful things move forwards that we're continuously improving, but it doesn't really feel like a year of massive cultural and social improvement. But let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm focusing on the word because all of the different dictionaries, everybody else has decided there are so many words of the year that they've chosen. For some reason, 6-7 is now considered a word.
Yeah, which it technically, absolutely isn't. It's the very definition of two words.
Exactly.
And even then,
it's a number.
Meaningless.
It's a number, so it doesn't count. You can't count as a word.
It's two numbers.
It is. That is true. It is two numbers. Yes. No, but so they had the other word was rage bait.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
I'm a big believer in rage. I'm more of a rage quitter than a rage baiter. So even parking this morning, I nearly rage quit, but it's very hard to rage quit in your car. So
what? Pray tell is rage quit.
It's just when you get so frustrated with a task that you just completely abandon it.
Okay.
And I genuinely, when I found out about the term, I thought, wow, I feel like that sums up my life. It's been one long rage quit. But yeah, rage baiting is obviously a big thing. And again, not one word. I mean, it's hyphenated, so I sort of cobble these things together. But you'd like to think this typically comes from like Oxford University or wherever, where you'd like to think they know the definition of what words are and are not. But anyway, they seem to be pretty crazy around this stuff.
You know what is another like 2-word, 1 word that they've given it as the year of the word? Vibe coding. Vibe coding. I don't know which dictionary or who put it as like their word of the year, but it's again 2 words, and it's as appropriate as it is. Vibe coding is quite a thing.
Well, let's maybe not go into it today, but I know that the general stance around the English language with these institutions is that the language evolves, and they're trying to really embrace that. So if there's something new out there, they typically want to kind of embrace that and go, hey, look, this is how English is headed, where English is headed. We should do an episode actually with my brother. He's a professor at Oxford University in linguistics. So he would be pretty close to this. So
yes, he would be a great guest. I would love to hear his thoughts on 6-7. And there was another word, like that was not a word, like I got a girl or something.
Like more of a noise. That sounded like a noise.
It definitely was just noise, but apparently it's been added to our dictionary. That's the wrong kind of evolution for English. And
Well, this is it. This feels like this reinforces my theme for the year of just not making any real progress
mhm.
culturally or socially, and that feels like some level of regression, linguistic regression, embracing
Mhm.
words that aren't words. And I don't know. It's like we're trying to keep up rather than sort of control. We're trying to just embrace the chaos, and it doesn't feel
Yeah,
right.
it does feel like we're leaning into the wrong part of the wind, like the wrong way
Mm.
and for the wrong
Yeah,
reasons.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that, I mean, okay, so let's get into the themes of 2025. The word for me that I would apply for in 2025, it's neither positive nor negative, but I think it applies well. It's transformative.
Okay,
I found
okay, that's
myself
good.
that I've used it multiple times, over and over throughout the year. And I do think it's transformative in almost every aspect, whether it's in regard of, possible language and evolution, or technology and AI and the world and climate and human rights, politics, everything. I think just I don't think we can, from 2025, this year on, we can ever go back to a time when 2025 didn't happen.
Mm.
That's how transformative of a year it's been. Has it, I mean, that kind of goes against what you were just saying about how it hasn't evolved at all.
Well, no, I think I kind of agree with you. Actually, I think it's more a definition of the word transformative, and you're right. I mean, I think in my mind, transformative feels more positive, but actually you're right. When you look at it coldly, it's about shifts, and things have definitely shifted, and they've shifted dramatically. It's just whether they've shifted upwards or downwards, and I think a lot of the shifts have been sort of downwards or somewhat of a regression. But I agree with you that we're talking about significant shifts. So I think we're probably violently agreeing here. But I'd love to hear the detail of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many themes. I mean, I can't think of anything bigger, but I feel like the world collectively did something that was aided by a giant pumpkin, is decentering America. I think there was an active push in trying to figure out alternative ways of doing commerce, doing trade, doing business, finding alternate education sources, travel options as an alternative to America being the default option. If it wasn't intentional, it was forced, whether it's by the tariffs, whether it's by the politics, or whether it's by the hard forced entry. I mean, this is the same country that initially banned people and is deporting a lot of people of color, but it's also offering a golden visa for a very high, ridiculous amount to come and live there. So I think starting with their neighbors, Canada, I think the fact that Canada was initially quite dependent on America, and now they're being forced to reconsider, is a reckoning I think the entire world is doing. China, India, Russia. Israel, even everybody is trying to find different allies, um, so as not to be dependent on America alone. What do you think?
Yeah, agreed. I think, America's not a power that can be depended upon anymore and be relied upon. They're not a strong and, well, consistent, reliable ally anymore. And I guess that's an interesting shift. And it does force some level of independence, commercial independence, industrial independence, and political independence amongst these once somewhat dependent countries. And I think it's true. Even I'm from the UK, so I have that sort of European perspective, and it's true that Europe very much depended on the US, and now they can't really do that sort of long term sustainably. So I think everyone's having to find their own feet in the world, which is probably a positive shift, but it's also a shame. And it's very clear that Trump doesn't believe in collaboration and doesn't believe in allies beyond a sort of more commercial relationship. He's become very transactional. As you say, that golden visa
Mhm.
is a perfect example of that. That sort of transactional. You're in if you've got the cash, you have to pay to play, but otherwise you're out. And it's really interesting the way that the US has shifted dramatically. We talked in our previous episode about, sort of somewhat a bit of a downward spiral for the US. And, I think that is true. And it's ironically when, it's so hard to believe that Trump came to power this year. I mean, it feels like so long ago, but it was, what, 11 months ago. And in his inaugural speech, he talked about wanting to be the aspiration of the wider world, everyone really looking up to the US and really becoming a kind of and this sort of golden age of America. When ironically, actually, that was the case, the year and the last 50 years. We talked in our previous episode about the US potentially losing its power, losing its grip, and losing its sort of spell over the wider world. But ironically, if you go back to Trump's inaugural speech, he talks about a golden age for America. He talks about wanting to be the envy of every nation. And actually, they were that. They have been that for the last, 50 years. But since he's moved into this office, all of that is broken now. And so it's a very interesting shift of the US sort of shifting more into the background and other countries really stepping up into a world of kind of independence and strength. And, particularly China has really stepped up now. And I think, for me, it's been the sort of year of China really just taking control. And yes, he introduced tariffs and pushed them and forced them, but they then responded with exactly the same and actually have come out, I think, largely on top. So it's been an interesting lesson, I think, for the wider world to really kind of get up and build an independent stance and proposition moving forwards.
Love the little bit about the year of China, because I think China's had a good run for a while, but I do agree. I think I see this being the starting point of China having a great run in the coming years.
They've got fantastic tech. Look at DeepSeek and the impact that had. Look at their electric car proposition now. It's, literally taking over not just, Chinese and Asian markets, but US markets. And it will do in Europe too. I mean, obviously, again, tariffs are a challenge in the US, et cetera. But yeah, and more and more, even myself I bought electric cars before, but now I see the level of product they're putting out from China. You just think, well, how could I possibly buy that Tesla or a Volkswagen electric car when I could be buying that Xiaomi incredible performance car that's basically a Ferrari, but for $45,000. It's insane, the quality of product they're putting out. So yeah, it's an incredible foundation for China to build upon.
Yeah, I have certainly found myself exploring China and Chinese products in Chinese cities. China and India finally have opened up their relations again. Their direct flights from, or I'm not sure which city, but it's those relations that were a little tense for a while. They are now thawing, and I think it's particularly because of the Western influences that are essentially forcing these Asian countries to kind of band together.
Yeah, which is a great outcome. Trump is burning these bridges, but it's forcing these other countries together. Mm-hmm. And actually, it's probably the right result. So it's an exciting kind of outcome coming out of what's somewhat of a negative. Sorry, I cut you.
No, that was it. To me, it was a side quest, and I think I see myself exploring this a lot more in the next few years. I'd hope to see some kind of like humane, inclusive versions as well mixed in there. But yeah, certainly exciting things to come up. Tell me one of yours. Tell me one of your key themes or shifts for 2025.
Well, I touched on sort of chaos, and I think, it has been socially, politically chaotic. When you think about it, I'm just going to list a few things here. Obviously, still no peace in Ukraine, somewhat of a ceasefire in Gaza, although that seems a bit of a temporary arrangement, very sadly. But I think a lot of that suffering has reduced, which is, obviously a huge step. But there is a lot of nervousness around that. And I think, at the end of the day, it has been somewhat the success for Donald Trump to be associated with that peace deal. But he comes at things in such a short-termist and shallow way that I don't think those things could ever be sustainable. And I don't think he's really tackled the depths of the tension there. He's so blunt, he's so one-dimensional. He just sort of forces peace, which doesn't really reconcile a deeper issue because he's not interested in depth. He doesn't operate at that level. So these things, I don't think it was never going to be long-term, and hopefully long-term solutions will be born of the interim ceasefires. But we are still yet to see that. Civil social unrest across the world, Charlie Kirk, tragic assassination there. And of course, even worse, Bondi, multiple killings. The US and Trump rolling back on their environmental commitments. President Trump looking at Greenland, of course. It feels like the MeToo movement is also being pushed back. It's hard to see the Epstein files really getting to the outcomes they should. And that's also pretty horrific. We talked a lot about AI, but just how tangible that progress is, we've yet to really see great substance coming out of that. A lot of buzz, a lot of paper thin deals. The global economic outlook looks a little fragile. People talk about the AI bubble, but is there a wider financial bubble as well connected to that? A lack of confidence in the job market at the moment, a lot of cutting back on freedom of expression. We've seen it in the BBC, we've seen it in the US, Jimmy Kimmel, etc. Natural disasters all year round, globally, all year wide. So England being humiliated in the Ashes, other than yesterday's somewhat hollow victory, it's been a rough year. Things really can only get better. So yes, it's been a year of chaos, I think, physically, socially, politically. That's kind of my key theme there.
I mean, I finally get when you put it in that, when you stack up all of those different events, you can see why chaotic is the word of the year. It's just relentless, one after the other. Whether it's man-made or natural. I mean, I guess even the natural ones are man-made, really.
Sadly, yeah.
Yeah.
Our tentacles go deep.
There are quite a few things I want to touch upon from that list. And
can I just say though as well before you do that,
go ahead.
There are some positives in there, but actually when I look at them now at the end of the year, I still feel some of those positives have warped into negatives. Like for example, I remember when Pope Leo was elected, I thought that's great. We've got a sort of representative but American Pope, the first American Pope. That could be really interesting having that. But then, of course, US somewhat warped in its perception. And then you're like, oh, well, even that now has a bit of taste in its mouth. So it is difficult, even when you start to think, oh, that feels quite positive. And then things shift again, they twist again, and then suddenly it all feels somewhat negative again. Anyway, sorry.
I was going to touch upon the biggest piece of that chaotic pipeline, which is AI. I think we started off the year from the end of 2024 coming into 2025. We were quite optimistic and hopeful, and certainly the businesses who wanna be applying and using AI, particularly for efficiency, to boost productivity, to make the impact that they claim to have. But we're quite optimistic. AI hasn't had the impact at all, not even close to what was being projected, and it's concerning because that does tie into that bubble that you were talking about. More than one company is banking on that AI infrastructure, and their now entire industry. We talked about this before, about how entire cyclical investment schemes, almost like a pyramid scheme of some sort, where money is being traded from one to the other in the hopes of a future achievement that is yet to prove itself.
And they keep kind of doubling down, but still no real substance is coming out of that.
If you look at AI adoption, it has been picked up, whether by choice or whether by force. Software engineers have tested or tried to apply AI. I mean, vibe coding was a part of that. It was having AI either write some of your code, support some of your code, and it certainly is an enabler of some sort. It allows to kind of visualize and bring to life what they have a vision for, and try it out. But it has not been able to replace real code to the level that they claim they would be. I mean, I'm still disbelieving of the claim that they have a lot of AI write their code, which seems counter to the point of engineers who've had AI write their code, and they say it takes them more time to review that code, to edit that code. It's the wrong trade-off to be making with AI. So the promise that AI fell short by a lot, it's huge. And the fact that going into 2026 and years beyond, we've got a lot of money tied into it. It's concerning because that does affect the rest of the economy. And if there is a collapse, that will push the wrong kind of outcomes to come forward, and there will be nowhere to hide.
And if there is a collapse, the AI is not going to fix it. So we're going to, good old fashioned physical hands are going to have to step in and fix this stuff. And it's going to be like, you made this mess, but now we have to fix it. And it'd be quite nice, I guess, for humanity and, traditional workers to demonstrate their value and fix this stuff. But, it does seem somewhat naive to be handing over to systems and investing into products and services across the portfolio of AI without really having fundamentally understood its capability. And I think this is the key issue I see now as well, is that everyone's deploying AI where they can. But as you say, you then have to step in afterwards and just check. And that kind of intervention is deeply inefficient and challenging because you know it's likely to fall short, but you don't know where and how.
Mhm.
So then you have to comb in detail to understand, okay,
Mhm.
where are the issues? Are there any issues? How bad is it? What are the fixes required? And it's like anything. When you delegate anything to anyone, if someone's new and in your team, and you dedicate something to them, and then they bring something to you, and sometimes it's easier just to start over than
Absolutely.
deeply try and fix this. Obviously, you need to work with that individual to teach them that fix so that they can improve. But that is laborious. And is that really more efficient? And if that's ultimately what the relationship with AI, then how does that help us?
Mhm.
I'm not convinced right now.
It's like the creation of middle managers for a worse employee than a human. But to put a positive spin on it, I think it's giving rise to a new breed of white collar jobs that are stable, and that cannot be replaced with AI. And it's not what you would think it is, right?
Mhm.
It's the gardeners, it's the plumbers, it's the physiotherapists, it's the massage therapists, it's home support care, and um all of a lot of the roles that require human interaction, physical human interaction, which AI cannot in any capacity deliver.
Yeah, I
And
mean, AI is yet to grow hands, and
so
for that reason, yeah, hands-on roles are still required for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And to me, that's the kind of regression we spoke about earlier. There was a time during the industrial age when getting an education, going to school, and getting a degree was the right and stable thing to do for a secure future.
Mm.
And now that kind of seems moot to a certain extent. You still
Yeah,
wanna
and those hands-on roles were things you wanted to try and transgress, and now you're saying there's a regression back to more physical, hands-on
exactly. We touched
careers.
on it very slightly for one of our episodes. We drive our cars and we know nothing about how to fix it. If our EV breaks down in the middle of the road, what are we going to do? Call Google, call the company? What's So if that is the case, that we're making that more trade work, craft work, hands-on roles, it just might help with the other part of the problem that we face this year, which is, it is once again, so 2024 was the hottest year on record, and 2025 so far has beat that record. More extreme weather events. I think it snowed in the desert somewhere. We experienced it. I experienced it in Kolkata, and then right here in Dubai, winter came and it's not backtracked a little bit. I'm sure it'll come back hopefully. But erratic weather events is a direct result of the impact that this technology program. So there's a very beautiful report done by Robert Leslie from Business Insider. He did a view from the sky of 2025. So it covered a lot of, like, the obviously the war and the destruction, and a lot of the climate events as well. And he showed this map on Australia where, I think in Queensland, maybe I might be mistaken, it rained a lot, so much so that it flooded the region. And the last time that region flooded was in 1974. So it's been a while, but what happened is the water took its natural pathways that it had before the development had happened. So you can literally see where there are houses and cities that have been built on those places. The water just taken its own path again, the path that it originally had, which is kind of like, to me, like nature reclaiming its space, and which makes me think, how did those developments get signed off?
Mm.
Where was the concern for the nature, and for the earth that they're going to inhabit when those things were built? Why was there no consideration to keep the waterways as they are, and then built with and around it? And I think, it's nature's way of pointing it out that
Yeah,
I still exist, and you
yeah, yeah,
cannot
yeah.
you
I'm
cannot
still
just,
here. Yeah.
yeah, you can't suppress or expect this man-made structure to compete with the years and years of evolution that I've made here.
Mm, no, exactly. And there's almost something quite, I don't want to sound unkind, but there's almost something quite pleasing about hearing about nature kind of just popping its head up above the parapet again and just saying, hey, don't forget about me. And we talked in a previous episode about the importance of designing with nature and the sort of trying to run architecture and nature in parallel and in unison and in harmony. But that hasn't been the case for many decades. And I think it's important that we get these reminders as as nation, as a populace, that we need to be more mindful of this. And again, as you say, with all the weather events we've seen this year, if these things are only going to worsen, as we just reminded about the sheer power and force of nature and how much we have not taken that into concern. And I think one of the pieces that I picked up on from researching this year, a sort of very tragic, sad kind of irony, is that the opportunity to be more environmental has never been greater. And green tech has never been more available. It's never been cheaper, but ultimately it's just getting completely ignored because there's shinier items and objects out there, whether that's AI or other technologies. But the opportunity within green tech is huge, but it's simply just not getting leveraged in full because it's just not that high up a governmental agenda. As we know, as we mentioned, everyone's much more transactional these days. Started with Trump, but I think that again has started to reverberate across the globe, and everyone's very short-termist. And these things have just become deeply commercial, and green tech just doesn't feel like a sound and a worthwhile investment in the context of worrying about the next 6 to 12 to 18 months, which is a great shame. And we'll have to watch the space.
It's a shame because unless you care about sustainability and the environment, there isn't any incentive to go green. There isn't enough support unless you care about the earth and the environment. You probably don't hear about it from anybody else touting their business. And I think that's a real shame because it's the exact "I'll be gone, not my problem" mentality that is leading to that.
Exactly.
Which it's a okay. I was going to bring up the Osaka World Expo because as a moment of architectural marvel, because they had that wooden dome structure they started building, I think in 2021 or 2022. And it's entirely made of wood, which was beautiful to look at and was incredible. They're repurposing that wood, which is such a sustainable way of building.
That reminds me of when I'm sure I read in the bid for the Qatar World Cup, the Qataris said that they were going to dismantle their stadiums, have them shipped to the third world and reassembled for communities that needed them. One, I don't know whether that's happened. I suspect it hasn't. But it's an easy thing to say 8 years prior to the event and to forget about years after the event. And two, I just don't know how feasible that is. Can you actually build a stadium in a location unless it's made of wood or some kind of prefab scenario? I don't think you can build stadiums for tens of thousands of people only to take them down again and move them elsewhere. And even if that felt smart, it probably isn't particularly sustainable. But anyway, I don't think that has happened. But I remember reading that was part of the bid and part of the reason they were awarded it, I think. But I don't know how tough.
That was definitely not the reason why they were awarded the World Cup.
No, absolutely. And whilst we're on football, of course, there's going to be, this is a retrospective of 25, but we can't help but think about what's going to come in 26. And there is a football World Cup and it's hosted in the US, but also in neighboring countries. And I just don't know how that's going to work. And, there's going to be a lot of teams and associated paraphernalia, all kind of a huge number of visitors to the US, not all of whom will fit the now stringent immigration criteria of the current leadership. So it's going to be an interesting collision of agendas, where obviously the US wants to host a very profitable tournament or theory profitable tournament and be the focus of the world and have the eyes on the US from across the globe. But the actual reality of that and everything that requires in terms of collaboration and welcome and just going to be interesting to see how that's going to play. It's just a strange sort of collaborative proposition when you reflect it next to the very kind of closed point of view of the president and his current outlook. But anyway, let's see how that goes.
It's sitting at loggerheads with a nation that doesn't really play the sport.
Well, that's that as well, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they have a team, I guess.
You said it, they did. Yeah, yeah.
And they're automatically qualified. And I can see the argument in Qatar getting the World Cup to a certain extent. I was a student when that bid was happening, and I was tweeting. Twitter was like the place to be, and so things have changed a lot since then.
They really have, yeah. Not even
um,
called Twitter now, though everyone still calls it Twitter.
my Twitter account still exists, but it's been dormant for like 2-3 years now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, mine's been dormant for longer than that, so it's pre-Musk. But yeah, him taking it over didn't help in terms of its.
I mean, okay, it made sense for Qatar to get the World Cup because football is quite big in the region. To me, that move showed that it was more like a statement that the West doesn't own football.
It's a statement about recognizing the future of football and really trying to nurture the next kind of phase of the game. Sorry.
Yes. And I remember I visited one of the World Cup stadiums that was built with shipping containers, and I think that was the proposition that they talked about. Maybe
the one.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if
shipped.
I have no idea if that has happened, but I could see that could be the one stadium that you could possibly do that with. I cannot say the same about the others, because they are like physical structures
and trophy assets. And you'd want to keep some of them, of course, but
of course.
Anyway, yeah, it was just a throwaway. I just remember thinking that and I'd love to go and see.
Very recently, Messi was doing his India tour. I'm not sure what the tour was about, but he started in Kolkata and then made his way across like 4 or 5 other cities. And it's a weird PR move, given that Indian football doesn't get that much recognition. And Indian footballers and players like Baichung Bhutia or I mean, there are very few names that I know in Indian football, and ISL struggles to get sponsors. Yet Messi's out there photographs.
But it is a massive opportunity. Yeah, like I mean, surely if you can get India to learn to love football, soccer, whatever. I mean, that's
India. But that's the problem. India does love football, so the Messi Ronaldo divide, especially in the city that I am in, we've got 2 teams called East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, and so their rivalry goes back to the Raj, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm not sure, but football has deep roots in India. It hasn't seen the sponsorship that cricket has. I mean, that has obviously happened in the last couple of decades. There wasn't any money before it started building up. So it's, to me, the fact that football hasn't made, or sport, its impact in community, it's a missed opportunity. Especially given that everybody wants India. If you look at all of the AI companies, so I have friends who recently moved from India to Toronto 4 months ago, and they're like, I miss all of the Indian perks that the AI companies were giving. GPT Pro is free for a year; you just have to pay 1 rupee. Gemini Pro is free for a year, and to me, obviously, it's a very clear data grab. It's the more Indians will onboard and use, the more they will learn, the models will learn to interact with that audience. So why would the country not capitalize on the opportunities that already exist? Indians do love football. That there isn't enough opportunity to celebrate it. The infrastructure has not been supported by private or public entities. On the topic of India, I was trying to look at Google search. I've done this for years now. Look at the search trends of what the world was searching, but I was very surprised to find the India England series was 7th on the list in Google queries.
That was a legendary series. Not to dive too much into cricket, but that was. And throughout the Ashes, this is ongoing at the moment, I've spent the whole time just bemoaning and missing the cricket that we had last summer between England and India, because it just, I don't know, I think it was just a perfect showcase of Test cricket. Whereas I feel like the Ashes has been the antithesis of that. Just games finishing in 2 days, looking really scrappy, really messy, really confused. Whereas every game went to 5 days there. And each game felt like it could go either way. It was a proper contest. And I think, even yourself, you're not a Test cricket fan, but watching that and even not watching it, just seeing the score progress and sort of dipping in and out and understanding the swings and dips and changes in the game, you start to really get a sense of this is the drama of Test cricket. Whereas there's been no real drama other than, just, I don't know, just flash in the pan moments. Whereas that was a really sustained interest over a 5-day format and over a whole series. And it really, right till the last moment, was in the balance. And that was just, I just hoped that the Ashes would build on that. But I feel like it's kind of torn all of that up. And it's a great shame. And I know that the Indian series last year in Australia was also really closely fought. And maybe it's just, a characteristic more of Indian cricket or than English cricket. But yeah, I now, I mean, I loved that series then, but I now find I'm just looking back at it with a sense of loss because it was, not only did we struggle through that series, but we just haven't performed at the same level. And it was great. Just a lovely showcase of cricket at its finest.
Well, congratulations on your win.
Yesterday, yeah. But again, like it just feels so hollow because it's like, one, we've already lost the series. Two, it was a bit of a scrappy win. And three, it's the culmination of a messy philosophy that I don't know, just doesn't feel right and makes me feel less comfortable as a cricket fan. And I don't know, I just want the series to end. Can't believe there's another week till the next one happens. At the same time, I'll probably end up watching it because I feel like I should, but I don't care. I don't care because it's just not been great cricket.
That is not true because Matt's voice, we obviously talk on WhatsApp and he was jubilant yesterday. I mean, Matt is usually on our messages. He's polite and he's like, very profesh. You could put
Not
profesh
always,
in
not
there.
always.
But yesterday, Matt was over the moon. And when you guys won, I was like, I was in 2 months. I was like, wait, do I congratulate him? Because like, yeah, you won this test, but the series is kind of lost. And so I thought it would like hurt. So I didn't bring it up. But then looking at the messages, he definitely does care. And I do agree that the Ashes hasn't lived up to the hype that it was built up to be.
Yeah, and there was a fair bit of overhype perhaps, but yeah.
Like Matt mentioned, I am new to Test cricket. This is the year I finally got into Test cricket, and I made the time. I sat through those games, and it was.
But with Test cricket, you don't have to sit through it. In fact, you can't sit through it. It's a dip in, dip out setup. Because my wife's been the same. She's like, "Oh my god, this is full on." But I have to get things done. I'm like, no, go and get the things done. Keep an eye on the score, but don't try and watch the goddamn thing. It's 5 days long. You're literally going to have a hole in your life. Anyway.
And this summer, I was able to appreciate the nuance and the endurance and the on-field game awareness. I think Ben Stokes as a captain is great to watch. He certainly was great to watch in the India England series. Yeah. For me, Test cricket was a big thing this year. Obviously, in the future, I will not be able to sit the 5 days, but I'm hooked on something that builds. And so it was a shame to see the Ashes go down in like 2-3 days, be wrapped up.
Yeah, it was more something that crumbles.
But that was one of the rage bait that came out of it, where I don't know who was doing like a town hall thing, and one of the Aussie like influencers, he asked whoever was on the panel, "Oh, is India versus Australia or England versus Australia the bigger game?" Everyone's like, "Oh, well, that's just the wrong kind of question because there's history on the Ashes. There's so many years of history." And
yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the answer was something like, I can't remember, but they basically said that the Ashes was far less critical. But you're right. I mean, it's more about history than the actual game. But yeah, I think the gap between this series and Australia versus India last year demonstrates that it's just not the same. And obviously, there's a huge traveling Barmy Army and a contingent that goes to Australia, but the resident community, expat Indians in Australia is significant as well. So you get an incredible atmosphere either way. No doubt a larger crowd from an India game, especially because they're so passionate about cricket wherever they are in the world. And particularly, I think if you live in Australia, where there is a strong cricket culture, it's always going to be an exciting game. And the quality of the cricket is just better. Yeah, I think it's just better. So yeah, I don't blame them. But you're right, that was definite rage bait questioning.
Okay, so it was a part of the chaotic stack that you mentioned. It's the MeToo movement losing steam, and I wonder if that is the case, or there's a quiet resurgence of women taking back their power, but doing so in the shadows and not doing it publicly. One of the biggest examples of women in tech, and women technology femtech, if you will, are period trackers. And the two biggest ones out there, only one of them have women at the lead, and they're the less funded version. The one that is bigger and has received a lot more funding have three males at the head of it. Um, it
Is that
is
even possible? Okay.
exactly. It's a bizarre twist of events. I think more and more women are choosing, especially millennial and Gen Z women, who are choosing to say, okay, we see the game that you're playing and we can see that we don't win if we played with the same rules. So we're gonna do what we can do for ourselves. We talked about how the companies want workers coming back into the office to be able to better monitor their productivity. And one of the biggest winners of work from home were the women who were also caregivers in some capacity for elderly babies and kids. And so I think women are reclaiming that by starting their own thing. There's a rise in entrepreneurship and businesses, and I think and women for the larger part doing this as a way to claim their independence.
Right. I suspect you know more about this than I do. We started this point around Me Too, and you were saying that it's still very much out there. It's just less visible, less pronounced, but it's more a sort of quiet movement in the background, which is really good to hear if that's the case. But I really don't know. And in terms of the more commercial side of what you were saying, in terms of women sort of taking a more independent approach to their own careers and building either a sort of fractional career from many different parts, or building their own thing. Again, I don't know too much about that, but I think that sounds extremely positive. And if that's happening in businesses, as you say, around sort of more feminine oriented products, more feminine oriented services, then absolutely that should be the case. It's terrifying to think there could be men at the helm of those kind of businesses. But yeah, it all sounds inherently very positive if that's
Well,
what you're seeing.
I mean, I know it's a little convoluted because this is not something that someone else has reported. This is something that I think I'm seeing. The president of America is a convicted felon who has shown up on the redacted copies of the Epstein files. I mean, other than his name didn't have to be there, he was very publicly, visibly associated with a pedophile, and he's still running the country. And the fact that that has made no difference. This is his second term. The people voted for him. And there's a concept that I've recently learned. It's called the Overton window. I first heard of it on the Daily Show wrap up. So the Overton window is a conceptual framework that provides an understanding of what's happening in the world. It describes the range of ideas and policies that are considered acceptable or normal in public discussion at any given time.
Right.
Right, so ideas inside the window feel reasonable and mainstream. Ideas outside of it are seen as extreme, unthinkable, or taboo.
And I guess that window can shift depending on
It is
the time.
it's a shifting window that that changes with time, that changes with the voice of the people, the
Yeah.
economic
Voice of the
circumstances.
media, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's where we've so normalized men of a certain type or era of behaving that way, that is just it's no longer an offense, and that they can retain their position of power. So if in the highest rank of law and authority women are not being heard, they are going to choose a second option, an alternative, to figure out a way to exist. Whether that's by choosing to say single, celibate, and staying away from men, and making sure that they build themselves independently. That was the connection that I was working
Yeah,
through.
and that's kind of where originally my reference to kind of Me Too came in, was kind of saying that things have shifted and this has become somewhat normalized, and it's disgraceful and it's shocking, but it's true. And somehow these people are getting away with this stuff now. And it's a great shame because there was so much progress inherent in that movement. But as you say, maybe that's not the full picture. And maybe actually at sort of a surface level, yes, it feels like that has shifted. But actually in the background, things are still moving and people are still being held to account. But nonetheless, there are these very visible, very tangible, very clear examples of people just getting away with this shit. And it's this great, and obviously the Epstein stuff is a shining example of that. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves. And obviously Trump is the perfect personification of that, genuinely a convicted felon. who is now running the world's greatest democracy, or what used to be the world's greatest democracy. And actually on more of a power grab as he goes. Obviously, recent events now really trying to increase his influence and the official mandate of the president of the US. Obviously for personal gain. Be interesting to see again how that evolves and to what degree he gains greater license around that kind of aggressive sort of power grab and land grab that's going on. I had a couple of positives like Mamdani.
Yes.
Taylor and Kelty.
Let's do positives. Let's do some positives.
K-pop demon hunters.
K-pop, yes. Okay. All right. Let's do the positives because yes, we can finally address the K-pop demon hunters. Let's start with the one that I had. It's like the small positive because it's a positive for us. Okay. Did you hear about the Oscars moving to YouTube?
It sounded like the beginning of a joke and then I lost you. Say again.
So did you hear about the Oscars moving to YouTube, I think by 2029 or 2030?
Oh, really? Interesting.
It is.
That's interesting. So the Oscars are going to move to YouTube. That means, so there'll still be a physical ceremony, but it'll be broadcast on YouTube. Okay, that's really interesting. Traditional cinema recognizes non-traditional content platforms. 2030?
Yes, it's still a ways away.
Okay, yeah. But that's still, the fact they've announced that now and recognized it at all is it's another shift.
It is. And it makes me wonder if the Oscars, which has been around for a while, if they can see the shift and they are still moving to YouTube as a platform, I'm wondering just how much bigger is video about to get.
Well, not so far. Let's see. But I mean, I guess, so even the categories will maybe have to evolve as well to start to embrace.
I think we would qualify.
Content. Okay, this is interesting. Yeah. We've yet to win any award, but now you're aspiring to an Oscar. Okay. Just jump straight to the top.
But I think that's a great positive for us because it was one of the platforms that we recognized as underutilized and that there's a closer connection to the audience that YouTube allows, which I think.
Yeah.
Let's do some more positives.
Okay, Mamdani, obviously.
Yes.
That's a huge opportunity. Although I worry that he could become like another Pope Leo, where I kind of think that's a great development. Oh no, but it's connected to this, and there was a bit of a love-in between him and Trump in the Oval Office around this election. So
I would love to discuss that. What do you think that was? Because that to me looked like Trump waving the white flag because you knew there was no way he could win.
Exactly, which was great to see. But I just worry that that he's sort of trying to go under the radar and then somehow going to try and influence him over time. Let's see. Mamdani's smarter than that and me and, many of us put together. So I'm sure he knows what he's doing. But it's exciting that he's now in a position of authority and can really start to shape things. And who knows where he can build from here. But that was exciting. And it was just a great kind of, this is the only hope really around the extremism of Trump is that, people will respond to that and other kind of options will spring up that are a kind of reaction to him. And that's what Mamdani beautifully embodies today. So hopefully that will continue. What other positives? Let's not forget about Tay and her wonderful
of course.
Nuptials. When are the actual nuptials? Is that next year or is that are they going to build over? Is that going to be 2030 also on YouTube?
I think it's going to be sooner than that. But what I am hearing is apparently they're considering, one is that their mothers are planning it, which is a very Indian thing to do. I don't know.
That's nice. Yeah.
Which obviously spawned off like many other things about maybe making it a multi-day ritual like Indian weddings are, like almost like a 5-day.
And they're also going to buy all of Venice.
Oh, that's that's
the model. That was the model from 2025, wasn't it? No, interesting.
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce getting engaged was a good thing. I liked all of the content that came out of that, whether it was the positive kind of masculinity, the very supportive brothers welcoming Taylor Swift into the family, them showing up to each other's like work stuff, like in the concerts and games.
Yeah, it was very kind of traditional and sweet and
very
wholesome, exactly. And they seem to be a very wholesome couple.
Yeah, so that was a nice positive. Yes,
it's what we need.
Okay, so what else?
K-pop demon hunters. And generally, I think it's been a very strong year in terms of creativity. I mean, obviously, the creation of these things goes way back. But yeah, we've seen some great content with some great creativity coming out. Again, humans proving their value and their worth at a time, at a bit of a crossroads. So yeah, and K-pop Demon Hunters, we did a lost episode around it, but a lovely piece of content that for all to enjoy. Obviously targeted at a certain generation, obviously targeted around a certain culture, but actually globally resonant and relevant, and very impactful and extremely successful in terms of views and impact. And yeah. So, but I really am out now. That's me.
Absolutely agree on the global relevance of K-pop Demon Hunters. It may have been influenced a little bit from Korea, and it may have resided in an American Korean world. But you're absolutely right about it being relevant for the entire world, because it's that perfect showcase of respecting and including culture, but also making it mainstream and digestible for people who might not be privy to the details of it, to be able to celebrate and share in it. And obviously, it's a bop. All of the songs are amazing. So makes me wish the Sasha Boys and the K-pop Demon Hunters were a real band and were putting music out instead of whatever AI music exists.
Who knows? Watch this space. You never know.
I mean, okay, so I think we're almost done. I would love to hear what our listeners, what you guys thought were the biggest things of 2025 for you,
Absolutely.
where you're joining us from. What you think is going to carry forward in the coming year.
Absolutely, yeah, we'd love to hear. Please share. Anything you can.
Well, I'm going to take a moment. You guys, thank you so much, Matt, for spending this entire year with me, talking about all of the wonderful things that we talked about.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's really great to hear your completely positive optimism and very insightful thoughts on all of the different things that we talked about.
My pleasure. Thank you. Agreed. And it's been really fun. I'm looking forward to next year as well. And hope you've enjoyed it too. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to our latest episode and all of the different episodes that you've heard.
We've really enjoyed this year, and we really appreciate the support of you listening. But we'd love to know more about what you think, what you'd like more of, what you'd like less of, and how we can improve the pod moving forward. So thank you so much, and please do share any suggestions.
Yes, please continue to support us going forward in 2026, and we hope we will see you there.
See you on the other side. Thanks so much,
Bye.
Les. Bye-bye.